Welcome, and thank you for stepping into the sleeping hourglass. Tonight's story drifts back to the coldest years of the 20th century, when hunger hollowed cities and silence filled apartments, and when survival, improbably, arrived on four small paws. This is not a tale of generals or grand strategies. It is the story of a family, a city under siege, and a cat named Vaska, whose instincts became providence and whose presence became hope. If you find comfort here, you're welcome to like or subscribe. A quiet way of keeping this peaceful corner alive. The city is still alive in the way cities always believe they will be. Trams slide along their rails with a patient metallic sigh. Windows glow softly in the early evening, each one holding a separate life, a separate supper, a separate belief that tomorrow will resemble today. Smoke rises from chimneys without urgency. Snow has not yet hardened into threat. It lies lightly, as if undecided. Inside one apartment, a family lives the way families do when history has not yet demanded anything extraordinary of them. The rooms are modest but familiar. The walls know their voices. A table sits near the window, its surface worn smooth by years of meals and elbows and newspapers folded in half. A kettle rests on the stove. Bread waits where bread always waits. And moving through these rooms, almost soundlessly, is Vaska. He is a grey cat, neither large nor small, with a coat the colour of ash after a fire has gone out. He does not announce himself. He appears where warmth collects, near the stove, beneath the table, beside the feet of those who pause long enough to notice him. His tail draws slow commas in the air. His eyes observe without judgment. To the family, he is simply there. He arrived years ago, during a season already half forgotten. No one remembers the exact day. He has always belonged to the apartment, the way the doorframe does, the way the creak in the floor does. He is fed without ceremony, spoken to without expectation. His presence is accepted, not celebrated. This is how ordinary life holds its small miracles, quietly, without names. Morning arrives with routine. Someone rises early to stand in line for bread, though the line is still short enough to feel temporary. Someone folds a coat, smooths a sleeve, steps into boots that are not yet worn thin. The radio hums with voices that sound official, confident, reassuring. The words are distant, easily ignored. Outside, the streets carry the weight of habit. Shops open. Children walk with books pressed to their chests. People speak of weather, of schedules, of things that assume continuity. No one speaks yet of endings. The family eats together when they can. Soup warms their hands before it warms their bodies. Laughter is not loud, but it exists. Silence is not yet heavy. Hunger has not learned their names. Vaska watches. He watches hands lift spoons. He watches crumbs fall and remain unremarked upon. He listens to the rhythm of breath at night, steady and unbroken. His world is made of smells and heat and motion, and everything in it still suggests abundance. He naps through afternoons that stretch comfortably. He wakes to the sound of keys at the door. He rubs against legs that move with purpose rather than fatigue. He does not know the word winter as a threat. To him, cold has always meant returning indoors. Beyond the city, the world is rearranging itself. Borders shift without visible lines. Decisions are made in rooms far away by voices that will never echo down these stairwells. Maps are redrawn with gestures too large to feel real. The machinery of war turns slowly at first, like something immense waking from sleep. The city does not feel it yet. There are rumors, of course. There are always rumors. but rumors leave easily alongside daily life when shelves are stocked and trains still run. Fear requires confirmation. It waits for proof. The family hears fragments, words carried on stairwell conversations, in queues, in the spaces between radio announcements. They acknowledge them without dwelling. Life continues best when not examined too closely. Vaska senses change only in the subtlest ways. A door closes a little harder than before. A voice pauses before answering a question. A hand rests longer on his back, as if drawing reassurance from the act itself. These things register not as concern, but as texture, a slight roughness in a surface that was once smooth. Evenings arrive earlier now. Lamps are lit sooner. Shadows lengthen along the walls. The city exhales darkness more quickly than it used to, though no one says this aloud. The family adjusts in small ways. A scarf is wrapped tighter. A window is checked twice. Food is counted, not because it is scarce, but because counting feels responsible. There is comfort in numbers. Vaska receives his bowl as usual. He eats without hurry. He licks his whiskers clean. He leaves a few crumbs behind. Outside, the sky lowers. The first true cold night arrives without ceremony. It does not announce itself as a beginning. It simply refuses to leave in the morning. Frost clings longer to glass. Breath becomes visible and then familiar. The city does not panic. It adapts, as it always has. The family gathers closer indoors. Coats hang nearer theaters. Sleep comes a little more shallowly. Dreams stretch into unfamiliar shapes. Vaska curls into himself, a compact shape of warmth. He presses his body against ankles, against ribs, against the quiet spaces where heat escapes. His purring is not loud. It does not intend to comfort. It simply exists. History has still not knocked, but it has reached the street. Trains slow, just slightly. Deliveries arrive later than expected. Conversations linger on a single sentence longer than they should. The city breathes, but the breath is shallower now. From his place on the windowsill, Vaska watches snow fall more decisively. It no longer melts on contact. It stays. It accumulates. It learns the shapes of ledges and corners and roofs. The family watches too, though they do not yet understand what they are seeing. They speak of winter as something that will pass, as it always has. They trust in seasons. They trust in spring. They trust in systems larger than themselves. Trust is still possible in this moment. Night settles gently. The city lights itself one window at a time. Inside the apartment, a final cup is rinsed. A blanket is folded. A light is turned off. Vaska moves through the dark without difficulty. He pauses in the doorway, ears turning toward distant sounds. Engines, perhaps, or something less familiar. He does not know what they mean. He only knows they do not belong to the ordinary night. He returns to warmth. Outside, the cold sharpens, unseen and patient. It does not yet bite, but it is learning how. The siege does not arrive with explosions. It comes quietly, like a door closed too carefully to be heard. One morning, the trains do not come. Not because they are late, not because of snow, but because the rails themselves have gone still. The familiar rhythm of departure and return dissolves. Platforms wait with nothing to announce. People stand longer than necessary, staring down tracks that lead nowhere now. Roads, too, begin to disappear. Not physically, but functionally. What once connected the city to the rest of the world becomes theoretical remembered. Maps lose their meaning. The city folds inward, turning itself into an island surrounded not by water, but by intention. Inside the apartment, The family feels this change first as inconvenience. There is a delay in deliveries. Shops open with fewer goods. Lines stretch and then stop moving altogether. Conversations become shorter, less speculative, more practical. No one says the word siege yet. Words like that feel dangerous when spoken aloud. Vaska notices the silence. He sits near the door when it opens, expecting the familiar sounds from the stairwell. Footsteps, voices, the echo of life moving past. Instead, there is a hollow pause, as if the building itself is listening for something that never arrives. His ears turn. His tail stills. The family brings news home in fragments, rail lines cut, warehouses burned, supplies redirected, destroyed, or simply unreachable. Each sentence lands without conclusion. There is no end attached yet, no timeline. Only now. Rations are announced. At first, they seem almost generous. Bread is measured, yes, but still recognizable as bread. Soap grows thinner, but it is still warm. The family adjusts with the discipline learned over generations. Saving crusts, reusing water, planning meals with quiet efficiency. Hope survives easily at this stage. It feeds on the belief that reduction is temporary. Outside, winter tightens. Snow piles higher, no longer decorative. It absorbs sound, muffling the city into something hushed and inward. Streets lose their edges. Familiar corners blur. Cold becomes constant rather than episodic, a presence rather than an event. Vaska learns new paths through the apartment. He avoids the floor near the windows, where cold seeps in like breath through teeth. He chooses higher places, warmer ledges. He begins to sleep closer to the humans, pressing his body against theirs not as affection, but as instinctive gathering of heat. Hands tremble more often now. The family notices it first during meals. Fingers curl around bowls with effort. Spoons are held longer between bites. The act of eating slows, not from reverence, but from calculation. Each mouthful is weighed against the next. Stomachs begin to speak. At first, it is a mild discomfort, an easily ignored emptiness. Then it becomes a sound, a low, insistent reminder that the body is aware of loss before the mind accepts it. Hunger makes itself known without shame. The radio continues to speak. Its voice remains steady, almost soothing. It offers assurances, explanations, instructions. It uses phrases like temporary difficulty and necessary sacrifice. The family listens, but with a new attentiveness, searching for what is not said. Vaska listens too, though not to the words. He listens to the tone beneath them. The tension in the room, the pauses that stretch a little too long. He watches shoulders rise and fail to fully settle. He smells fear now, faint but unmistakable, sharp beneath wool and soap. The city changes its habits. Lights are dimmed earlier, not out of preference, but necessity. Fuel is conserved. Movement is reduced. People walk less, speak less, conserve energy as if it were currency. The streets feel watched. Though no one is looking, cold becomes more aggressive. It no longer waits outside walls. It moves through them. It settles into furniture, into bones, into the idea of rest. Sleep grows restless, interrupted by shivering and small, involuntary movements. The family layers clothing even indoors. Coats remain on shoulders. Scarves stay wrapped. Gloves are worn while handling metal objects, bowls, tools, anything that might steal heat too quickly. Comfort becomes a memory rather than a condition. Rations shrink again. Bread is now weighed in grams, not slices. The portion feels almost symbolic, more gesture than sustenance. Soup becomes water with a history. The family eats slowly, reverently, though not by choice. Vaska receives less as well, His bowl is no longer full. The change is gradual, careful, accompanied by murmured apologies no one expects him to understand. He eats what is given, licks the bowl clean, then sits nearby, watching as if something might appear if he remains attentive enough. The apartment grows quieter. Not from peace, but from fatigue. Words cost energy now. Laughter feels extravagant. Silence stretches and settles, thick but not yet unbearable. Outside, the city learns what isolation truly means. There is no arrival to anticipate, no departure to plan. The city exists only with itself and its circumstances. It turns inward, each building a small universe of endurance. People begin to disappear. At first, it is subtle. A neighbor not seen for days, a light no longer turning on. Explanations are offered and accepted without inspection. Illness, relocation, delays. Vaska notices empty spaces before humans do. He pauses at doors that no longer open. He listens for sounds that do not return. He understands absence as a physical thing, a gap where warmth once lived. The family begins to understand too. This winter does not feel like the others. It does not behave properly. It does not follow rules. It is not content to be endured. It demands. They stop speaking of spring with certainty. Instead, they speak of if and when. Cautious words that acknowledge uncertainty without naming despair. Plans shrink to the size of days. Survival becomes an immediate concern rather than a distant fear. Vaska adapts. He moves less, conserving energy. He watches more. His eyes follow the smallest movements. A hand reaching for bread, a body sinking into a chair. His world narrows, but his attention sharpens. The city holds its breath. Snow continues to fall, indifferent and constant. The silence deepens. The siege tightens not through violence, but through subtraction of food, of heat, of certainty. Inside the apartment, the family sits together in shared quiet, listening to the sound of their own breathing. Aware now that time has changed its nature. This is no longer a season. It is a condition. Hunger does not arrive all at once. It enters gradually, as if asking permission. At first, it lingers near the edges of the room. A mild discomfort, an ache that can be distracted by conversation or sleep. Then it steps closer, confident now, learning the rhythms of the apartment, memorizing where warmth gathers and where it escapes. The family feels it most clearly in the mornings. Rising from bed takes longer. Limbs resist movement, as though gravity has increased overnight. The act of standing becomes deliberate. The body asks questions the mind cannot easily answer. Still, they rise. The apartment looks the same at first glance. The table remains. The chairs still hold their shape, but something has shifted in the way the space is used. Rooms that once offered comfort now offer calculation. Furniture begins to change its meaning. A chair is examined not for how it supports the body, but for how long it might burn. A shelf is touched thoughtfully, fingers tracing wood grain with a new awareness. The family does not speak of this out loud. Decisions are made silently, with glances and pauses. One evening, the first piece disappears. It is not dramatic. No ceremony marks the moment. The object is simply gone, replaced by a colder corner and a brief, precious warmth that fills the room for an hour. Smoke drifts upward. The smell of burning wood mingles with memories of hands resting there, books once stacked there, life once leaning against it. Fire consumes history efficiently. Bread becomes memory. The rations have shrunk again, quietly, officially. What arrives is barely enough to acknowledge. Each portion is divided with care so precise it feels almost mathematical. Crumbs are gathered. Nothing falls unnoticed now. Eating changes. Meals no longer signal rest. They signal strategy. Each bite is held in the mouth longer, as if time itself might add substance. Swallowing becomes an act of faith. Hunger takes a seat at the table. It sits between them, uninvited but undeniable. It listens to every conversation. It interrupts with cramps and dizziness. It waits patiently, knowing it will be noticed eventually. The family weakens in visible ways. Faces grow sharper. Eyes appear larger, more reflective. Movements lose excess. Laughter, when it comes, sounds thinner, surprised by its own existence. And yet, each morning, they rise. They dress slowly, layering clothing not for style but survival. Buttons are fastened with stiff fingers. Breath fogs the air indoors now, a reminder that the walls no longer protect as they once did. Outside, the city mirrors the apartment. Buildings look hollowed. Streets are quieter than silence. Snow is packed hard by weeks of footsteps that grow fewer by the day. The cold does not vary. It does not negotiate. Vaska moves through this changing world with new attentiveness. He notices the way footsteps drag slightly now. He notices how voices fade at the ends of sentences, as if energy runs out before thought does. He notices the way hands tremble when they reach for food. His bowl is lighter again. He eats what he is given and looks up, alert, as if expecting something more. He does not cry. He does not protest. He simply watches, his eyes tracking every movement, every sound. The apartment teaches hunger its boundaries. It learns where people sit, where they rest their heads, where they pause to gather strength before crossing the room. Hunger learns the angles of light and shadow, the patterns of footsteps, the hours when weakness is strongest. The family adapts in small, careful ways. They speak less, they sit closer. They save energy by staying still longer than instinct suggests. They learn that stillness can be as important as motion. Sleep becomes shallow. Dreams are brief and confusing, filled with images of food that vanish upon waking. Morning brings disappointment layered atop fatigue. The day begins already tired. Vaska senses the deepening change. Something in the air has shifted, a density, a heaviness. He no longer naps without vigilance. His rest is lighter, his awareness sharper. His ears twitch at sounds others no longer hear. He begins to follow the humans more closely. Where once he wandered independently, now he stays near. He positions himself where he can see all of them at once, as if counting. When one leaves the room, his gaze follows until they return. The apartment grows barer. Another piece of furniture is sacrificed, then another. Each time, warmth flares briefly, gratefully, then fades. The family measures fire by hours, not comfort. Heat is rationed like food. The walls seem to move inward. Not physically, but perceptually. Space feels smaller, more intimate, more urgent. Every corner holds awareness of what has been lost to keep breathing possible. Hunger grows bolder. It no longer waits quietly. It asserts itself with dizziness, with weakness, with moments when standing feels impossible. The body becomes unreliable, betraying intention. Still, the family rises. They move through days with a quiet determination that surprises even them. There is no heroism in it, no speeches, no resolve announced aloud. There is only continuation. Vaska watches this with unblinking focus. He begins to sit near the door more often. He listens to the outside with renewed interest. The world beyond the apartment, once irrelevant, now draws his attention. Cold seeps in relentlessly. It sharpens edges, numbs fingers, slows thought. The city feels suspended, held in a long breath that does not release. Snow no longer falls gently. It accumulates aggressively, reshaping streets into corridors of white. The family's conversations change. They no longer speak of news beyond survival. The future is reduced to the next meal, the next hour of warmth, the next night endured. Hope becomes quieter, more private. Hunger is no longer a visitor. It is a resident. It knows the shape of the room now. It knows where to sit, when to press harder, when to wait. It knows that resistance costs energy, and energy is already scarce. Vaska senses something else awakening within himself. It is not thought, not plan, not intention as humans understand it. It is older, deeper. A stirring that responds to imbalance, to vulnerability, to the quiet signal of need. His body feels different. Lean muscle tightens beneath fur. His movements become more purposeful. He watches the outside with a hunter's stillness, though he has never needed to hunt before. The family notices this without naming it. They stroke his back absently, fingers lingering as if drawing reassurance from his warmth. They speak to him softly, as if he might understand more than he once did. Nights are the hardest. Darkness stretches long and uninterrupted. The cold deepens. The body aches from holding itself together. Sleep comes in fragments. Vaska curls close, pressing his small warmth against failing heat. His purring is faint but constant, a vibration that insists on life. The apartment holds them all in fragile balance. Furniture is gone. Food is scarce. Hunger has settled fully into its place, yet breath continues. Hearts continue. Morning still arrives, unwelcome but undeniable. And in the quiet observation of a grey cat, something ancient, older than cities, older than wars, opens its eyes. Morning arrives without distinction. It does not announce itself as different. Light seeps weakly through the window, grey and diluted, touching the walls without warmth. The apartment wakes slowly, reluctantly, as bodies gather themselves from shallow sleep. The cold remains, hunger remains. The family moves through familiar motions, standing, dressing, breathing, each action requiring intention. There is nothing to anticipate in the day ahead except endurance. Vaska waits near the door. He sits upright, unusually still, his tail wrapped tightly around his paws. His eyes follow every movement as coats are lifted, boots adjusted, scarves tied with fingers that struggle to cooperate. He does not meow. He does not rub against legs as he once did. When the door opens, he slips out quickly, decisively, before anyone can stop him. This is not unusual. He has been doing this more often now, leaving, returning, leaving again. The family has learned to let him go. There is nothing to gain from holding on too tightly anymore. The door closes. The apartment settles into its quiet again. Hours pass slowly. Time stretches in strange ways now, elastic and unreliable. The family occupies itself with stillness, conserving strength. They sit close together, sharing body heat, listening to the building breathe around them. Outside, the city remains muffled beneath snow and silence. When the door finally opens again, it is without warning. Vaska enters without sound. He does not dart inside or shake snow from his fur. He walks carefully, deliberately, as if carrying something fragile. The family notices this immediately. The change in his posture, the focus in his movements. Then they see it. On the floor, near the threshold, lies a small bird. Its feathers are dull, winter-worn. One wing rests at an unnatural angle. Its body is still warm, heat lingering like a fading memory. There is no blood, no violence on display, only the unmistakable truth of death, placed gently where it will be seen. No one speaks. Shock arrives first. Not horror, not fear, but a stunned stillness, the kind that freezes thought before it can form language. The family stares at the small shape on the floor, unable to immediately reconcile what they are seeing with what it means. Vaska steps back. He sits a short distance away, watching. His body is alert, tense, as if awaiting judgment. His eyes flick from face to face, reading expressions in a way that feels almost deliberate. Silence deepens. The bird lies between them like a sentence unfinished. Gratitude comes next, quietly, uninvited. It rises not as relief, but as recognition. The family understands immediately what this is. Not accident, not play, not cruelty. This is provision. This is instinct answering need. No one reaches for it yet. Hands remain folded, trembling slightly. The weight of the moment presses down, heavy with implications that stretch far beyond this small, broken body. They have crossed something. The bird is lifted gently. It feels lighter than expected. Its warmth is startling, intimate. Life has only just left it, and the body has not yet accepted the fact. The family handles it with care usually reserved for living things. No one looks at Vaska while this happens. There is shame in their gratitude, though they do not name it. There is sorrow too. For the bird, for themselves, for the world that has made this moment necessary. Preparation is quiet. There are no words exchanged, no instructions given. Everyone knows what must be done. Efficiency replaces hesitation, not out of coldness, but out of respect. Nothing will be wasted. The smell of cooking fills the apartment briefly, faint but unmistakable. It awakens memories the body responds to before the mind can stop it. Saliva gathers. Stomachs tighten in anticipation. Hunger surges forward, no longer polite. Vaska watches from his place near the wall. He does not approach. He does not demand. He remains alert, as if guarding the space. His ears flick at every sound, his eyes never leaving the family. When the food is ready, it is divided carefully. There is not much. There was never going to be much. But it is something. Substance, protein, warmth. Each portion is measured not equally, but thoughtfully, accounting for weakness, for need. Vaska receives nothing. No one offers, no one considers it. The understanding is unspoken but absolute. This is not his meal. This is his gift. They eat slowly. The act feels ceremonial, though no ritual has been declared. Each bite is taken with awareness. Chewing takes time. Swallowing carries weight. The food tastes richer than memory suggests, though perhaps that is hunger speaking. No one speaks while they eat. Words feel unnecessary, inadequate. The silence is not empty. It is full of gratitude, of grief, of a dawning awareness that the rules of their lives have shifted again. Afterward, exhaustion follows quickly. The body absorbs what it can, grateful and overwhelmed. Strength does not return, but something steadier takes its place. A small reinforcement, a temporary anchor. Vaska moves then. He approaches slowly, cautiously, as if uncertain of his place. He rubs against a leg, presses his head briefly into a hand. The touch is light, questioning. The family responds instinctively. Hands reach down. Fingers stroke his fur, linger longer than before. The contact feels different now, heavier, more intentional. They are no longer touching a pet. They are touching a provider. The apartment feels changed. Not warmer, not safer, but altered. A line has been crossed that cannot be erased. The family understands this even as they settle back into stillness. Night falls early. Darkness wraps the building in quiet. The city beyond remains unseen, unheard. Snow continues its patient accumulation. Sleep comes unevenly. Dreams are fragmented, filled with movement and pursuit, with wings beating briefly before falling silent. The body rests, but the mind remains alert, processing what has happened. Vaska does not sleep deeply. He sits near the door again, his posture attentive. He cleans his paws carefully, methodically, removing all trace of the outside. When he finally curls into warmth, his body remains tense, ready. Morning will come again. Hunger will return. But something has changed irreversibly. A small life has been given, and in accepting it, the family has learned a new truth about survival, that it does not always arrive gently, and it does not ask permission. The winter no longer feels like a season. It feels like a sentence with no punctuation, stretching forward without mercy or pause. Cold settles into the walls and does not leave. It thickens the air, presses against skin, slows breath itself. Morning and night blur together beneath the same grey ceiling. The calendar insists that days are passing, but the body no longer believes it. Time freezes alongside water pipes and window glass. Even thought moves carefully now, conserving warmth, conserving strength, conserving hope. Inside the apartment, the cold announces itself in small, intimate ways. Fingers ache before they move. Knees resist standing. Breath appears in the room like a quiet confession. The stove remains dark most days, a monument to fuel already spent. The walls listen, but they do not answer. Once, the apartment held laughter, arguments, ordinary sounds of living. Now it holds silence, interrupted only by the scrape of shoes on floorboards and the slow, measured chewing of survival. Every sound feels important. Every movement feels expensive. Outside, the city sheds its people. Neighbors stop appearing on stairwells. Doors remain closed for days, then weeks, then forever. Names once spoken softly in passing become memories no one has the strength to carry. The hallways grow quieter, emptier, heavier. Sometimes a body is carried out. Sometimes nothing is carried out at all. Absence becomes the city's most common feature. It spreads faster than cold, faster than hunger, filling spaces where lives once warmed the air. The family notices these disappearances without comment. Words are too costly now. Grief requires energy, and energy is scarce. They learn to accept loss the way one accepts frostbite, slowly, painfully, without ceremony. Each morning, they count who remains inside the apartment. Each night, they count again. Survival narrows the world to what is directly in front of them. Everything else fades, even fear. Fear requires imagination, and imagination burns calories the body cannot spare. Vaska moves through this shrinking world with quiet determination. His body grows thinner, his fur less plush, but his eyes remain alert, bright with something older than hunger. He understands the rhythms now. He understands when the door opens and when it does not. He understands the sound of weakness in human steps. Each day he waits. Each day he leaves. Each day, the family watches the door close behind him, unsure if it will open again. Snow cuts his paws as he moves through the streets. Ice sharpens itself beneath his weight. The city is hostile to small bodies now, hostile to all bodies. But Vaska navigates it with instinct rather than despair. He follows traces others cannot see. He listens where humans no longer hear. The cold does not persuade him to stop. It only teaches him to be careful. Hunger sharpens him. Responsibility steadies him. He moves as if pulled forward by an invisible thread tied to home. The family waits in silence when he is gone. Waiting becomes a skill, a discipline, almost a prayer. They do not sit by the window anymore. Strength must be saved. They lie still, wrapped in layers that smell of smoke and old winters. When footsteps echo in the stairwell, hearts lift, then settle again. Most sounds pass by. Some do not return. When Vaska finally scratches at the door, the relief is physical, immediate, overwhelming. He brings what the city still offers: small lives, fragile calories, proof that the frozen world has not gone entirely empty. There is no discussion now, no hesitation. The family has moved beyond shock. Gratitude is silent, practiced, efficient. Hands move carefully. Nothing is wasted. Even bones are honored. Even crumbs are remembered. Survival has stripped choice away, leaving only necessity, and necessity accepts gifts without judgment. The cold deepens as the weeks continue. It sinks into joints, into teeth, into thought itself. The family grows quieter, not from despair, but from focus. Speech is trimmed to essentials. Each sentence must justify its warmth. Nights stretch endlessly, filled with shallow sleep and aching dreams of heat and fullness. In those hours, Vaska curls against them, a small, living furnace. His heartbeat is steady, reassuring. It reminds them that life still moves forward, even slowly. Neighbors continue to vanish. The building feels hollow now, like a ribcage emptied of breath. Sometimes the family hears faint sounds through walls. Coughing, crying, silence, then nothing. The city records these losses without ceremony. No bells ring. No notices are posted. History absorbs them quietly, efficiently, without names. Inside the apartment, however, each absence is felt like a draft, like a door left open to cold that cannot be closed. Vaska does not notice the missing neighbors. His world has narrowed to routes, scents, returns. He measures days by effort, not by dates. His paws bleed sometimes, though he never limps. Pain is acknowledged, then ignored. He has learned the geography of survival, which corners still hold mice, which eaves still shelter birds, which paths avoid the worst of the wind. The city has become a map written in suffering, and he reads it fluently. The family watches him more closely now. They see the way he eats last, how he waits until hands have finished before approaching what remains. They see the way his ribs show through thinning fur. They understand something has shifted. This is no longer companionship. This is exchange. This is labor. This is sacrifice without language. The word pet no longer fits. It feels too small, too gentle, too unearned. Winter refuses to loosen its grip. The sun appears rarely, weak and distant, offering light without warmth. Snow piles against buildings like an accusation. Spring feels like a story told to children, not a reality meant for adults. The family stops speaking of future meals, future days. They live entirely in the present moment, where breath continues and hunger is temporarily quieted. This is not living as they once knew it. It is endurance shaped like life. Each day Vaska leaves feels heavier than the last. Each return feels more miraculous. The family knows, without saying it, that they are being carried by something smaller than themselves. History does not prepare people for this realization. No book explains how survival sometimes arrives quietly on padded feet without uniforms or speeches. Yet here it is, undeniable, curling beside them, asking nothing but warmth and space. The cold keeps pressing. The city keeps emptying. The winter keeps refusing to end. But within the apartment, a fragile system holds. Breath follows breath. Day follows night. Vaska follows instinct, and instinct becomes sustenance. The family understands now, fully and without illusion. They are alive because something else keeps choosing to return. When hunger loosens its grip, even briefly, something else steps forward to take its place. Not relief, not comfort. Something quieter, more fragile, and more essential. The body can endure long stretches without fullness, but it falters quickly without warmth, without closeness, without the reassurance that another living being still shares the same fragile air. The family is learning this now, slowly, in the long nights when food has already been divided and silence returns to the room. Night is the most difficult hour of the siege. Darkness sharpens every sensation. Cold grows bolder when the sun disappears, creeping closer to skin and bone. The city outside holds its breath, wrapped in snow and shadow. Inside the apartment, the family lies still, conserving heat, conserving strength. Sleep comes in fragments. Dreams are thin and fleeting. Consciousness drifts, then snaps awake again at the smallest sound, the smallest shift in the frozen quiet. It is during these hours that Vaska becomes something more than a provider. He moves without being called, instinct guiding him toward the places where warmth has thinned the most. He curls against ribs that rise unevenly. He presses his small body into the hollow of a chest where breath struggles to remain steady. His fur is rougher now, less luxurious than it once was, but it carries heat, and heat has become a kind of medicine. The family does not speak when he settles beside them. There is no need. His presence is understood immediately, deeply, without explanation. Muscles loosen, breathing slows. A hand, weak but deliberate, rests against his side. Feeling the proof of life there, the steady rhythm of his heart becomes a guide, something to follow when one's own pulse feels uncertain. In the darkness, that simple rhythm holds the room together. History rarely records moments like this. Official accounts speak of tonnage and rations, of temperatures and timelines. They measure survival in numbers and logistics, but survival, as it is lived, unfolds in quieter dimensions. It lives in shared breath, in borrowed warmth, in the comfort of knowing that something else is awake beside you when the world feels unbearably empty. These are the moments that do not appear in archives, yet they decide who endures. The family remembers other winters, long before the siege, when warmth was abundant and unnoticed. They remember falling asleep without planning where to place their hands, without calculating how to preserve heat through the night. Those memories feel distant now, belonging to people they almost recognize. The present demands a different attentiveness. Every movement is intentional. Every comfort is earned. Nothing is wasted, not even closeness. Vaska understands this economy of warmth instinctively. He shifts when needed, adjusting his weight, his position, his breathing. He does not sleep deeply. He remains half aware, alert to changes in the room, to the subtle sounds of distress. When someone stirs restlessly, he responds, pressing closer, offering what little he has. He gives without calculation, without expectation. His generosity is automatic, unthinking, and therefore pure. Outside, the city continues to thin. Fewer lights appear in windows. Fewer sounds travel through the streets. The siege has stripped life down to essentials, and companionship has become one of them. Isolation is as dangerous as hunger now. The family senses this even without words. They huddle together not only for warmth, but for confirmation. Confirmation that they still exist, that they are still connected to the living world. Touch becomes language. A hand squeezed gently in the dark says, "I am here." A shared breath says, "We are still alive." Vaska's quiet purring, low and steady, fills the spaces where conversation once lived. It is not loud, not constant, but it is enough. The sound carries reassurance in a way words no longer can. It smooths the sharp edges of fear. It invites rest where rest feels impossible. In these nights, the family learns that survival is layered. Food keeps the body moving forward. Warmth keeps it from retreating inward. Presence keeps the mind from drifting too far into despair. Remove any one of these, and endurance begins to unravel. Vaska provides all three, not through intention, but through being exactly what he is: alive, aware, and willing to stay. The cold still presses against the walls. Hunger still waits for morning. Loss still echoes in the empty apartments nearby. None of this has changed. Yet within the small circle of shared warmth, something holds. The family's breathing synchronizes, slowly, unconsciously. Sleep deepens, just enough. Strength returns in increments too small to measure, but real all the same. There are moments, just before dawn, when the city feels almost peaceful. Snow reflects what little light exists. The silence softens. In those moments, with Vaska curled close and breath steadying, the family feels suspended between what has been lost and what might still come. It is not hope, exactly. It is something quieter, sturdier, a sense of being held in place, anchored against the current of erasure. When morning arrives, pale and reluctant, Vaska stretches and prepares to leave again. The warmth he offered does not vanish with him. It lingers in muscles, in memory, in the quiet confidence that night has been survived. The family rises slowly, carefully, carrying that warmth forward into the day's challenges. They do not speak of it, but they feel it. They know now that survival is not only about what enters the body, it is also about what stays beside it in the dark. Spring does not arrive all at once. It does not announce itself with warmth or colour. It comes cautiously, as if unsure it is welcome here. The city has endured too much to trust sudden change. Ice still coats the streets in the early hours. Breath still fogs the air. Yet something subtle shifts. The cold loosens its hold, not enough to release, but enough to suggest it might one day let go. The family senses the change before they can name it. Mornings feel different. Light lingers a little longer on the walls. Shadows move differently across the floor. The air inside the apartment no longer bites as sharply. It still chills, still warns, but it no longer threatens with the same intensity. Survival remains fragile, but it has room to breathe. Outside, the city stirs. Not with confidence, not with relief, but with tentative motion. Snow melts unevenly, revealing dark patches of ground beneath. Water drips from rooftops in slow, patient rhythms. These sounds feel unfamiliar after months of silence. Each drop echoes like a memory returning. The city listens to itself, reacquainting itself with the idea of movement. The siege does not end. The roads remain closed. Supplies remain uncertain. Hunger still waits, watchful and near. But something has cracked. The absolute stillness of winter fractures into cautious noise. Footsteps appear again. Hesitant but real. A door opens somewhere down the street. A voice carries briefly through the air before fading. These sounds are small, but they matter. They suggest continuity. They suggest that life has not been entirely erased. Vaska notices the changes in his own way. The ground feels different beneath his paws. Snow no longer cuts as sharply. Scents shift as ice releases what it has held for months. He still leaves each day, guided by instinct and habit, but his journeys grow shorter. The city offers slightly more now. Survival does not require quite as much from him, though he does not yet know how to stop giving. The family watches him go with mixed emotions. Gratitude remains deep and enduring, but something else stirs alongside it, a quiet awareness that the worst may be behind them, even if it is not fully gone. They are careful not to name this feeling. Hope feels dangerous. It has broken hearts before. Still, it flickers, faint but persistent, like light through thinning clouds. Inside the apartment, routines shift subtly. Movements grow less labored, hands shake less. Conversation, though still sparse, returns in fragments. A shared observation, a remembered detail, a brief laugh that surprises everyone, then fades quickly, as if embarrassed to exist. The family does not analyze these changes. They simply accept them the way one accepts warmth after a long cold, cautiously, gratefully, without trust. History moves slowly in moments like this. It does not pivot cleanly from suffering to relief. It drags itself forward, weighted by memory and loss. The family understands this instinctively. They do not expect restoration. They expect continuation. Survival has taught them that endurance is rarely rewarded with clarity. Instead, it offers ambiguity and asks whether one can live inside it. Neighbors reappear, though fewer than before. Some doors open again. Some remain closed forever. The building carries these absences quietly, without ceremony. There is no accounting for who returns and who does not. The city absorbs the imbalance, reshaping itself around loss. Life resumes not because it has been repaired, but because it insists. Vaska returns each evening with less urgency. Now, sometimes his paws are empty, sometimes they are not. Either way, the family does not panic. They have learned to endure uncertainty without immediate fear. Hunger still matters, but it no longer defines every moment. The family has crossed a threshold, invisible but undeniable. They have survived something that cannot be undone. At night, the apartment feels different. The cold retreats slightly from the corners. Sleep stretches longer, deeper. Dreams grow more vivid, less desperate. Vaska curls beside them as always, but his role is shifting. He is still warmth, still presence, still anchor. Yet the weight he carries is lighter now. The family breathes more steadily. Their hearts no longer stumble as often in the dark. Spring continues its careful advance. Ice breaks apart along the river, slow and deliberate. The sound travels through the city like a message carried by water. Change is happening. Not enough to celebrate, but enough to notice. The family listens from their window, wrapped in blankets, feeling something loosen inside them in response. Memory returns with the thaw. As the ground softens, so do thoughts long buried beneath survival. The family begins to remember who they were before hunger narrowed the world. Not fully, not comfortably, but enough to feel the distance they have traveled. They carry these memories gently. They know now how easily everything can be taken away. Vaska senses this shift too, though he does not name it. He rests more during the day. His body begins slowly to recover, thickens slightly. His movements lose some of their sharp edge. Instinct relaxes just enough to allow stillness. Yet he remains attentive, watchful, ready. The world has taught him not to trust ease. The city does not celebrate spring, it endures it. Recovery, if it comes, will be uneven and incomplete. There will be more hunger, more loss, more waiting. The family understands this. Survival has made them realistic, but it has also given them something unexpected: perspective. They know now that they can endure far more than they ever imagined. As days lengthen, the light inside the apartment changes. It touches the walls differently. It finds corners that have been dark for months. These small transformations feel significant, even sacred. They remind the family that time continues, regardless of human suffering. This truth is both painful and comforting. Vaska lies in the sun when it appears, soaking in warmth without guilt. The family watches him with something like reverence. They know what he has given. They know what they owe. Words still feel insufficient, so they offer what they can: gentle hands, quiet companionship, shared space. It is enough. Spring does not erase winter. It does not forgive it. It simply arrives, carefully, and waits to see if life will follow. Survival does not end all at once. It loosens gradually, like a knot that has been pulled tight for too long. The family feels this change first in the body. Hunger no longer speaks at every moment. Food appears more regularly, modest but reliable. Bread is no longer counted crumb by crumb. The stomach still remembers emptiness, still tightens reflexively, but it begins to trust again. Slowly, cautiously, the body accepts nourishment without fear that it will vanish tomorrow. Strength returns unevenly. Some mornings bring clarity, steadier hands, a willingness to stand a little longer by the window. Other mornings bring exhaustion so deep it feels ancient. Recovery does not follow a straight line. It curves, falters, doubles back. The family learns to accept this too. Survival has taught them patience. Healing demands even more. The city mirrors this uneven return. Markets reopen in fragments. Streets grow busier, though never crowded. Faces appear thinner, eyes older. Conversations are brief, careful, as if everyone is still afraid of using too much voice. The siege remains part of daily life, but it no longer consumes every thought. The city has space now for memory to surface, and memory is heavy. Inside the apartment, routine begins to resemble something like living. The stove warms the room more often. Water runs longer in the sink. Light feels less fragile. These changes are small, almost embarrassing in their simplicity, yet they feel profound. Each ordinary action carries the weight of what it once cost. Nothing is taken for granted anymore. Vaska moves through this changed world with quiet dignity. His body fills out slightly. His fur regains some softness. He sleeps more deeply now, stretched in places where sunlight gathers. Yet his attentiveness remains. He still listens for shifts in the room, still rises quickly when someone moves. The habits of survival do not disappear simply because danger recedes. The family watches him differently now. During the winter, they watched with need. Now they watch with understanding. They see not just what he did, but what it cost him. The thinness that lingers. The way his movements remain economical, precise. They recognize sacrifice when they see it because they have lived inside it themselves. Memory begins its work quietly. It arrives uninvited, in fragments. A smell recalls a night of desperation. A sound echoes an absence that never returned. The family does not speak of these memories yet. They surface privately, individually, like ghosts testing whether they are allowed to stay. Survival demanded forgetting. Recovery invites remembering. History does this to people. It asks them to endure first, then to reckon. The family stands at that threshold now. They have crossed out of immediate danger, but they have not crossed into peace. Between those states lies reflection, and reflection is not gentle. It forces the mind to revisit moments once sealed away for safety. They begin to understand what they have lived through, not as a story, but as a transformation. They are not the same people who entered winter. Their bodies are marked, their instincts altered, their sense of time reshaped. They move more slowly, think more carefully, love more deliberately. Loss has taught them to hold what remains with reverence. Vaska becomes central to this understanding. He is no longer simply part of daily routine. He is a presence that gathers meaning. When he curls beside them, it feels ceremonial. When he eats, they watch with gratitude rather than relief. His life has intertwined with theirs in a way that cannot be undone. He is stitched into their memory of survival. They begin to tell his story softly, not to outsiders, but to themselves. They repeat it in small details. The first return, the routine that followed, the nights of shared warmth. Speaking these moments aloud makes them real again, but also safe. Memory, when shaped gently, becomes something that can be carried rather than endured. The city begins its own remembering. Names are spoken again. Losses acknowledged. Stories exchanged quietly in lines and stairwells. There is no grand reckoning, no collective release. Just individuals placing their experiences side by side, discovering patterns, discovering that endurance was widespread, but never identical. Each survival has its own shape. Vaska does not know he is being remembered. He knows only the present moment. Warmth on the floor, a familiar voice, a hand resting on his back. This is enough for him. His role was never to be aware of meaning. His role was to act. The family understands this now, and it deepens their respect. Food becomes steadier. The body strengthens. The mind begins to wander again, imagining days beyond the next. With this return comes a new awareness. Survival has left an imprint that will not fade. Even as life normalizes, something remains altered. The family will always listen for hunger more closely. They will always measure warmth carefully. They will always notice who is present and who is not. They also carry something else forward. A knowledge rarely written into history books. That life is often sustained by forces too small to record. That endurance is frequently shared across species. That heroism does not always arrive with intention or recognition. Sometimes it arrives quietly, every day, on foreworn paws. At night, the family sleeps more deeply now. Dreams still visit, but they no longer overwhelm. When Vaska curls beside them, it feels less like necessity and more like communion. A shared acknowledgement of what has passed. A shared agreement to remain. Memory settles into the apartment like dust, not suffocating, but persistent. It coats ordinary objects with meaning. The table remembers hunger. The floor remembers waiting. Vaska remembers only home. Together, these memories form something whole enough to carry forward. Time moves forward in ways that feel almost impolite. It does not pause to ask whether people are ready. It does not slow down to honor what has been endured. It simply continues, carrying seasons, governments, memories, and bodies along with it. Years pass. The siege becomes a chapter in books, a paragraph in lectures, a date remembered more easily than the days that made it unbearable. The city repairs itself. Streets fill again, windows glow at night. Children learn to walk where silence once ruled. New voices replace the old ones. The absence remains, but it grows quieter, layered beneath routine and renewal. History, in its official form, settles into order. It speaks of supply lines and military decisions, of endurance measured in statistics. It finds comfort in scale, in distance. Inside one apartment, time moves differently. The walls remain the same. The light falls at familiar angles. Objects hold memories no ledger can record. A table remembers hunger. A floor remembers waiting. The space carries echoes not as sound, but as feeling. Survival has left its imprint here, subtle but permanent. Vaska grows older. His movements slow. His eyes soften. The sharp urgency that once guided him through frozen streets fades into something gentler. He spends more time sleeping, more time resting near warmth. The instincts that saved lives settle into quiet habits. Yet his presence still shapes the room. It always will. The family leaves on. They work. They speak of ordinary things. They plan. They laugh. From the outside, nothing marks them as survivors of catastrophe. But inside, they carry a knowledge that does not fade. They know how fragile fullness is. They know how thin the line between life and absence can become. They know what it means to be sustained by something small. Sometimes, when conversation turns to the past, the family remains quiet. They listen as others recount numbers and dates, victories and losses. They understand the importance of these stories. They do not dispute them. Yet they also know what is missing. They know how much history leaves unsaid. History prefers clarity. It favors leaders and movements, causes and consequences. It struggles with intimacy. It cannot easily record the sound of breathing in a dark room or the warmth of a small body pressed against failing hearts. It does not know how to quantify devotion without language or instinct sharpened by necessity. Vaska's name does not appear in any archive. There is no monument for him. No footnote acknowledges his contribution, and yet lives unfolded because he returned. Days continued because he did not stop. Futures existed because he endured winter alongside humans who could not have survived alone. The family understands this now with a calm certainty, not pride, not sentimentality, just truth. They have learned that survival is often collaborative, woven across species and circumstance. They have learned that love does not always announce itself. Sometimes it simply arrives, again and again, without explanation. As years stretch on, memory softens, the sharp edges of fear dull. The body forgets some of its lessons, but not all. Certain instincts remain. The family still stores food carefully. They still notice cold more quickly than others. They still listen for silence in places where voices should be. These habits are not burdens. They are reminders. Vaska becomes part of family stories told quietly, without drama, not as a miracle, not as a legend, but as a presence. He is spoken of the way one speaks of weather that shaped a life or a road that once mattered deeply. His story is not exaggerated. It does not need to be. When he finally grows still, the apartment feels different. The silence is not frightening. It is familiar, layered with gratitude. His absence carries weight, but also peace. He has finished his work. He has given everything he had to give. The family honors this without ceremony, without words that might fall short. Outside, the world continues. History continues. New crises arise. New narratives form. The past becomes background noise to present concerns. This is how time protects itself, by refusing to linger. Yet within one home, something remains carefully intact. The family knows that love once arrived without language, without promise, without recognition. It arrived quietly, persistently, on 4 small paws. It arrived during the coldest years, when humanity's systems failed and instinct stepped forward instead. This truth does not demand acknowledgement. It does not seek validation. It simply exists, carried forward in the way the family leaves, in the way they notice small lives, in the way they respect quiet endurance, in the way they understand that history is not only shaped by those who command attention, it is shaped by those who remain. At night, when the apartment is still and light fades softly from the walls, memory settles gently, not as grief, but as understanding. The family knows now what history almost missed, and knowing this, they rest more deeply, trusting that meaning does not require record to endure. And as the story closes not with an ending, but with quiet remembrance, the truth lingers. That even when history looks away, love has already done its work, and the world keeps turning because of it. As this story settles back into silence, let its meaning rest gently with you. History, we learn, is not only carved by leaders and battles, but by quiet endurance, by instinct, by love that never asks to be seen. And though years pass and voices fade, that small, steady courage continues to hum softly in time, like a candle burning low but faithful. Thank you for sharing this quiet space with me tonight. By listening, you've become part of the story's keeping, a witness to something ancient and tender. Now, loosen your breath. Let the day fall away. This has been the Sleeping Hourglass, where the past tucks you in. Sleep well and let the night hold you.